New movie came out called Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Spy, Assassin. This is a movie poster. It's got a picture of Bonhoeffer holding a gun. I've done a review of this movie on my main channel. If you're curious, then I did a whole blow-by-blow about everything that's wrong with it and all of that. So check that out. He was a pacifist. That's why the gun is so relevant. He would never hold a gun. Never. The movie was a big joke. Anyway, it wasn't based on Eric Metaxas' book, Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Prophet, Martyr, Spy, or whatever it is, but they were adjacent, and they told the same warped story. So I just kind of want to listen to Eric Metaxas' take on this movie. So Eric Metaxas went on Lance Wallnau's TV show to talk about the movie and everything. Let's give it a listen. By the way, Eric Metaxas, he's famous for his involvement in VeggieTales. I believe he voiced somebody on VeggieTales. He also wrote a book that sold millions of copies. Bonhoeffer was the title. Extremely famous. And he's a Christian nationalist nutcase. He wrote a very detailed book about Bonhoeffer. It was long. It was 400 pages or something. Broke the dude's life down. And the whole thing was a lie. It was all a lie. He fabricated a fictitious involvement in an assassination attempt on Hitler and everything else, and a bunch of other stuff. In fact, in his book, he claimed that Hitler won his election. It's a pretty straightforward claim, but it's wrong. And, I'm thinking to myself, well, I made mistakes in my books before. You just got to go back and fix it, right? Except he didn't go back and fix it. In fact, he doubled down on it.
Hitler was elected. I mean, you can manipulate, you can win over, you can brainwash enough people. That's the scary things. Our founders understood that.
That's
we
right.
have a
At least, I was going to say, Hitler was elected. Biden had to steal the election. But
Hitler wasn't elected. Why is he saying this? He did not get elected. He was appointed chancellor by the guy that actually won the election, Paul von Hindenburg. That's what we're dealing with. That's a caliber of person we're working with here. Listen to what Lance Wallnau has to say to Eric Metaxas.
Do you see it that way, that right now?
Well, listen, we prayed for years that it would be in God's timing. And what happened with Hamas a year ago, this is clearly God's timing. That's one reason.
The Bonhoeffer movie focused pretty heavily on supporting Israel at all costs and kind of, made it out like Israel is suffering terribly under an oppressive hand, like the Palestinians are Nazis that are pulling Jews in and putting them in concentration camps. This is fictitious stuff, but that's probably why he's mentioning this.
One reason. There are other reasons, but listen, I have for years, I know the Lord has called me to the culture, okay? I care about politics, care about theology, I care about, but the Lord has called me to the culture, and creating films and TV programs that are for everybody, not for the Christian conservatives, for everybody, because that's what evangelism is, to reach the people that you're not reaching. This is that kind of a film. You can bring your liberal relative or neighbor. You can bring.
I agree, actually. The Bonhoeffer movie, as far as a movie goes, was okay. I didn't feel like it was extreme propaganda. It was definitely propaganda. But it wasn't way over the top Christian nationalists, wokeism is bad and no DEI and all that. It wasn't to that degree. It just wasn't good. It was just kind of a boring movie for the most part. Unless you know something about the subject, in which case you're disgusted by it because it's so wrong. Literally anybody that knows anything about this should know that it was false. The whole thing was false beginning to end. Again, I'm okay with some artistic license. For example, Hitler is sitting in his bunker. He gets a letter from his second in command, Göring. Nobody had heard from Hitler in a while. Göring says, if I don't hear from you by noon the next day, then I'll take control of the military. That was the plan. He was the second in case something happened to Hitler, and he didn't know if Hitler was alive. So he writes a letter to Hitler saying that. Goebbels reads the letter out to Hitler and puts a negative spin on it to make it sound like Göring was committing treason. How do you portray that in a film? The way that they did it in Downfall, for example, was somebody else comes into the room, reads the letter as it's written, and then Goebbels twists it to be more treasonous than it actually was. I'm okay with some artistic license, some changes to kind of get the spirit of what happened, if not the fact. That's not what this was, like, at all. It was just lie after lie after lie, and the timelines didn't line up at all. It was all nonsensical trash.
Anybody to this film and they're going to go, that's a great film.
Okay.
So it's not one of the films that just folks like us like. It's a film that anybody will like, and God is at the center. It's a mainstream film with God at the center. What's
Okay, I suppose so. Yeah, I guess I agree.
the last time that happened? Like Chariots of Fire 40.
Like, bro, that happens all the time. Like, Christians control the culture in the United States. Have a stranglehold on it. Are you kidding me? When's the last time a movie was released that didn't have something to do with God? Like, God wasn't in the movie anywhere.
Years ago.
Right, exactly.
So this is a very big deal.
All right, now look, let me play the trailer for you folks right now. I want you to watch this. This is Bonhoeffer, and the title of it is Pastor Spy Assassin?
Something like that.
He was not an assassin.
Just Bonhoeffer is good enough, yeah.
All right, go, let's see it.
This is the opening sequence, and this is his twin sister, Sabine.
Something's coming. Something unstoppable.
Look around you, my friend. How much light do you see?
Yeah, that was, oh no, they're going to play, all right, we can't listen to this because they play this Disturbed song. We'll skip forward, but you get the idea. And also, like, I was waiting for characters to be introduced, waiting. Like, these people should have been introduced into this film, like, a long time ago. And then they reveal who this character was. He was in the movie the whole time. It didn't represent the person at all. Like, what? Niemöller was chewing out Bonhoeffer for opposing Hitler, and then he was speaking well of Jews? What? None of that is real. None of it. It's like an embarrassment that they would put this on film. Did the actors not read even a single book about this subject? How could they, in good conscience, have gone along with this? You're going to jump forward. Let's keep listening to Eric Metaxas' take here. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they worked together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon. Okay, let's continue.
Okay, I'm begging people, your audience, to see it this weekend, because the opening weekend of a film like this is everything. If it has a big opening, now, by the way, I'll tell you, when you see it, you'll love it, and you'll say, oh, I should have seen this sooner, or I should bring so-and-so, or it's that kind of a film. But the opening weekend is everything. And to have a faith film opening in this many theaters across the country, this is a huge opportunity for the gospel, for evangelistic conversations. And the theaters don't want it. I mean, if it doesn't do right.
What? The theaters don't want it? What are you talking about? It was in theaters. I went to see it in theaters.
Many theaters across the country. This is a huge opportunity for the gospel, for evangelistic conversations. And the theaters don't want it. I mean, if it doesn't do right the first weekend, the next weekend or the weekend after that,
No, they're perceiving.
Yeah, no really? Are you just now realizing this? Knock me over with a feather. If something isn't making money, then it doesn't, continue on in its position on the screen or whatever. They don't continue filming this. Obviously. You think this is some conspiracy?
It is a faith film. We know it's
undeniably a faith film, but the point is, it's so mainstream that I think a lot of people who aren't faith people will see it and love it, just like with Chariots of Fire or in the
I agree. That's probably happening.
1960s, we had A Man for All Seasons. There have been films like that, but it's got to be done just right. This film, it's done.
Well, we don't have a big run, but you know
right.
what this could be like? It was what was the movie we have with Vint Caviezel?
With the
Sound of Freedom. Yeah, it was distributed by the same company, Angel Studios. QAnon adjacent movie. The guy who's based on Tim Ballard was a QAnoner, is a QAnoner today. And the movie's been denounced by a ton of human trafficking organizations worldwide and everything because it was just all nonsense. So yeah, Angel Studios is once again waist deep in controversy.
Sound of Freedom.
Yeah, I mean, that was like this. But we had a runway on that one. This came fast. That one at least had a couple of weeks. I bought the thing in advance.
Yeah, The Sound of Freedom was really big, actually, really big.
Yeah. No, this is. I mean, churches are buying out theaters, so this is
Okay.
like, you know.
This is huge. This is huge. Now, out of curiosity, were you able to go on the set during the filming at all? Were you invited on? Were you able to convince?
I was not. I was not able to do anything like that. I mean, I think I said it. It's not officially based on my book, but the people who made the film were inspired to make a film on Bonhoeffer because of my book.
I don't know about that. Is he putting a puff in his own petticoat here? I'm not so sure. However, it did mirror a lot of the lies presented in his book. For example, it had a quote from Bonhoeffer in the movie. The quote was something to the effect of, "To not speak is to speak. To not act is to act. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil," or something like that. It had Bonhoeffer saying that in the film. That's in this book of Eric Metaxas's also. It's fake. Eric Metaxas's book was like pretty much the first instance of the quote being attributed to Bonhoeffer. I mean, it was like in a couple of other books in like the 70s or something, but Eric Metaxas really ran with that quote, and it made it to the movie. So yeah, I'll take that step and say they're probably getting a lot of their information from this book.
So the film wouldn't exist if it hadn't been for me writing the book. And I got to say, you know, the book that I wrote on Bonhoeffer, I mean, I can say this to you. I know.
And what, 2 million other people. I can say it to you, but nobody else. What?
You know, the book that I wrote on Bonhoeffer, I mean, I can say this to you. I know the Lord prophetically called me to write this story. It wasn't just like, I got a book about a hero of the faith, let me write a story. God created me.
Brother, that is psychotic.
Stop it. Get some help.
How did you know? Was it couldn't shake the thought? You have a dream?
No,
Did you see
I will tell you. Listen, my mother, who I talk to every day, she's 90. She grew up in Nazi Germany. And the year I got saved, 1988, the man who led me to faith.
You're Greek. How did your mother grow up in Nazi
Well, my
Germany?
father grew up in Greece. My mother grew up in Germany. They met in an English class in New York City. So my mother's got a German accent. My father had a Greek accent. It's like a Greek and German European immigrant home that I grew up in. And they always talking about World War II because they lived through it. But I remember the year I got saved, my friend Ed Tuttle says to me, "Hey, have you heard of Dietrich Bonhoeffer?" He gives me the book Cost of Discipleship. You know who this is?
Cost of Discipleship was a book written by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and it leaned heavily into theological discussion. It was a fine book. I've read a lot of Bonhoeffer's theological takes, if you will, and they're good. I like them just fine, but, you know, there's nothing unique about them. Like, I can get those theological takes from any pastor within 100 miles of me. He was a good guy. I love him, and I identify with him very much. And in my opinion, my moral compass aligns precisely with his. But, you know, they seem to think that it aligns with theirs too. So, anyway.
No, I never heard about this. What's that? Oh, it's a German pastor who, because of his faith in Jesus, spoke out for the Jews and was killed by the Nazis.
It wasn't because of his faith in Jesus necessarily. It was probably because he had a lot of Jewish friends and family members, and he was personally affected by it. But I'm sure that his faith in Jesus probably contributed, sure. Like, you know what? I would rather it not be because of his faith in Jesus. I'd rather it be because he's a good person, not because he feels that he's being pushed into being a good person, but because he's actually good. It better not be because of your faith in Jesus.
Never heard about this. What's that? Oh, it's a German pastor who, because of his faith in Jesus, spoke out for the Jews and was killed by the Nazis. This is a German pastor who, because of faith in Jesus, spoke against the Nazis.
And you know why this is so remarkable? Because almost nobody was like this. Almost nobody held these views. There were 18,000 pastors in the church, and of those 18,000 in the Protestant church, 2,000 or so at its height were members of the confessing church, the oppositional denomination to the Nazified Christians. About 3,000 were full-blown Nazified Christians. They call themselves German Christians, originally Christian nationalists or Protestant nationalists. And the other 12,000 or so were just intact churches that just kind of followed the ecumenical Lutheran line, basically.
I thought, are you kidding? Like that kind of faith I could be interested in, because I was, kind of hostile to the faith. And I thought, this is attractive to me that a man would live out his faith, speak against the Nazis. And, so I was captivated.
Young man too. I mean, his 30s, 40s?
Bonhoeffer was killed. He was 39.
He was born in 1906. I believe April 1906. I actually have it in my book here. OwenMorgan.com. It's on Amazon and Audible. Was Hitler an atheist? I know exactly where it is. He was born February 6, 1906, and he was executed April 9th, 1945. So what is that? That's the 39. Yeah, I guess he had just turned 39 like 2 months earlier.
9 years old. He was engaged to be married. I mean, it's such a beautiful story that he lives out his faith. But I remember when I first heard it, I thought, this is amazing. I never dreamt I would write a biography, that it would sell 1 million. It sold well over 1 million copies.
I prefer Bonhoeffer's best friend's biography of him. The guy that lived with him and shared a bank account with him for a while. I prefer that one. I think he probably knows a little bit better about Bonhoeffer and the family. Dude that met the family members and hung out with them.
But I remember when I first heard it, I thought, this is amazing. I never dreamt I would write a biography, that it would sell 1 million. It sold well over 1 million copies, translated into 20 languages. So there's something about the story of Bonhoeffer that inspires people like crazy. I mean, when people see this film, you're going to be like, how did I not know? It's so beautiful. And it's a true story. I mean, the film.
No, nothing about Eric Metaxas' book or the film are true. It's all fictitious. And you know what? And Eric Metaxas knows that the film was fictitious, from beginning to end.
When people see this film, you're going to be like, how did I not know? It's so beautiful. And it's a true story. I mean, the film, they take a few liberties, but almost none.
Are you me right now? Almost none? There was not one scene in that film that matched up with reality. Not a single scene. It was lie after lie after lie. And it even portrayed unsung heroes of World War II as villains, like Admiral Canaris. It portrayed him as a monster. He saved countless Jews from gas chambers. The balls on somebody to put that in their movie script. What is wrong with you? Dude saved thousands of lives, and you portray him as an enemy. That is just some disgusting right there. Straight up disgusting.
It is a true story. It's not just a great movie. It's an actual true story.
No.
And that I can vouch for because I know it in detail.
He knows better than this. He knows he's full of right? He must. He can't possibly not know. He wrote a 400-page book on the subject and lied all the way through it. But he knew some real esoteric things. I went through his book, and he had some stuff in there that was pretty hard to find. And I know exactly which sources he used to find some of that stuff, too, because I found the same information. He really dug into this subject. He knows better. He knew that he was lying when he put it on paper, and he knows that he's lying right now when talking about the movie. He knows.
I taught a class for Peterson's Academy that's going to come out in a couple of weeks.
Oh, God.
In depth or whatever. When people get their arms around this, there's so much to it. And I'll tell you, huge evangelistic opportunity to, if you go to this film, you bring somebody who's not a Christian, they're going to be interested in this kind of Christianity, a guy who lives out of it, but also standing up for the Jews at a time when the Jews are being demonized again in our culture.
You think that the Jews are dealing with the same problem right now that they were in Germany in 1943? Are you serious right now? There is crazy anti-Semitism in the world, off the scales. But Israel shouldn't be synonymous with Jews. If it is synonymous with Jews in your head, then you're implicitly admitting to yourself and everyone else that it's an apartheid state. Israel shouldn't be a Jewish nation. This shouldn't be a Christian nation. It should be a nation for everybody. The Jews were victims in World War II. Horrific, disgusting treatment in World War II. Now the people in Israel are perpetrating horrific evils. Not to the degree of the Nazis. I don't want to say that, but they're committing evil. It's bad. How is it in his head that Israel is attacking a country of people that are completely destitute? They're attacking them right now. They're dropping bombs on refugee centers. And in his mind, that's the same as the gas chambers. I'm sorry?
What interests me is the idea that Bonhoeffer was trying to wake up the church at a time the church says, we don't want to be political. Does this?
Are you shitting me? Really? You got to be joking. That is the problem. The church was political. This guy is a joke. Bonhoeffer is not telling people to be more political. He was trying to get Hitler out of the church. He's trying to get politics out of the church. This is Holocaust revisionism. Dare I say Holocaust denial.
What interests me is the idea that Bonhoeffer was trying to wake up the church at a time the church says, we don't want to be political. Does that sound familiar? Mm-hmm. We don't want to be political. We just want to do church. We just want to do evangelism.
It's almost too bad the movie didn't come out ahead of the election.
We might have won the election.
I mean, we could have had an electoral college
we might have won the election if only it had come out. No, listen. This film is about what's happening in America today.
No, it's not. It's not even comparable.
Will the church wake up? Now, I think enough in the church woke up. I believe it's the Lord's will to deliver us from the horror of what happened in Germany. But it's like we dodged the bullet.
Well, as Elie Wiesel says in his book Night, in the preface, God isn't here. He is not helping anybody in concentration camps. He's allowing them to die. Now, you can come up with some excuse for that, some reason, moral justification. Well, he's just, he's busy. Stuck in traffic right now is the problem. So once he, gets out of traffic, he'll give us a call from a payphone to let us know where he is. No, he's gone. He's not helping anybody. Now, tell me again that God is here and going to fix your problems for you, find your keys for you and stuff. Go on.
Enough in the church woke up. I believe it's the Lord's will to deliver us from the horror of what happened in Germany. But it's like we dodged a bullet like Donald Trump dodged a bullet. We just missed
the
death.
Church woke up. I don't know that the pulpits woke up. I think that
what does that even mean?
People woke up. I think the Christians. So what was the percentage? Do you have any recall of how much of the church in Germany was awakened and so
okay, I don't know what awakened means. 2,000 of the 18,000 Protestant pastors were confessing church members at most. It was honestly lower than that, especially when Hitler started implementing the Uriah order, sending people to the front lines who were kind of oppositional to him. Anyway, 2,000 pastors at its height of 18,000 were confessing church, opposed to Hitler. 3,000 of 18,000 were German Christian, Nazified, and then the other 12,000 were intact churches.
We got to do something. How much of it was confessing? How much of it was
not enough?
He has no idea. He doesn't know. Are you really? You have no idea? Are you kidding me? I mean, this is the first thing I looked up. How big and influential was the opposition? Was it a tiny little voice in the void, or was it a gigantic crowd screaming, "No, we're not going to do this"?
Not enough. I mean, I say in my book, the new book, Letter to the American Church, which is basically, it'd be
I have that book. It's crazy.
More fun to read the Bonhoeffer book, but I'm saying that in the last couple of years, I wrote a book called Letter to the American Church showing the parallels. And in that book, I say that there were 18,000 Lutheran pastors. By 1935, 2 years into the reign of the Nazis, only 3,000 of the 18,000 were standing strong. 3,000.
No, not in any way, shape, or form. Only 1,000 really were standing strong. 2,000 put their name on a piece of paper saying that they were willing to, stand in opposition to state control in church business. But by the way, the vast majority of those 2,000 were Nazis. They were still Nazis. They just believed that Jews could convert to Christianity, according to the Bible. That's all. Still didn't like Jews. He is so full of...
By 1935, 2 years into the reign of the Nazis, only 3,000 of the 18,000 were standing strong. 3,000. If just a few more had stood, it would have been another day. but they had the same excuses that the churches have in America today. Oh, we don't do politics.
No, they didn't. There was no separation of church and state in Germany at the time. In fact, the only legitimate church was the one that controlled the government in that region. That's how you knew that it was ordained by God, because he gave them control of the government in that area. There were 28 districts, and each one was controlled by like a different bishop, a different pastor, or whatever. So this is just like completely made up. Like he's just lying here. Or he's just dumb as dog. I don't know which one.
If just a few more had stood, it would have been another day. But they had the same excuses that the churches have in America today. Oh, we don't do politics. What kind of a moral midget are you that you say we don't do politics? Children are being raped at the border. Children are being mutilated.
Dude, what is wrong with him? Are you shitting me right now? You suddenly care what's happening to people on the border? Okay, great. Throw the doors open and let them in so that that's not going to happen anymore. No, he wants to send them back to their home countries where that's most definitely going to happen even more. You think the border is bad? Wait till you see where they came from to even apply for refugee status in the first place. It's almost entirely refugees seeking asylum that are coming over the border. That's totally something Jesus would do, right? Close the doors and force everybody to go back to a place that they'll probably die in.
Children are being murdered in their mother's wombs. Like you don't.
That is not happening.
Want to speak up about that? You don't want to do politics? God wants you to do politics. God wants you to speak up on these issues. The German church had the same response in the early 30s. Like, well, we don't want to get involved politically.
That's bullshit. No, they didn't. That is literally the exact opposite of what he is saying right now. The apple bag on somebody to say something like this is astounding.
We just want to do church. That's the devil's church. And that's what I've been talking about all over the country for the last 2 years. The Bonhoeffer story brings it to life. And obviously the Bonhoeffer book brings it to life because you start understanding these were people. This was not some mythical time. My mother grew up in that world. This is a real world. So the parallels are amazing. But the movie, to make a movie about this and to be able to pull it off, Lance, on a mainstream level. Now, this is, again, it's not like a Christian film or what. This is a film that anybody who sees it is going to say, wow, what a power.
It was a Christian nationalist film. No doubt about it. Well, for one thing, they included a version of Martin Niemöller, the creator of the Confessing Church. They included a version of his poem that excluded communists. First, they came for the communists, but I didn't speak out because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the socialists, then the trade unionists, then the Jews, then me, and no one was left to speak for me. They left out the communist bit. They also didn't say nationalism almost at all. I don't remember them ever condemning nationalism, maybe once in the movie. It was definitely a Christian nationalist film, and it was just bullshit from beginning to end, all of it. Like, if you want the real, actual story, Amazon and Audible, Was Hitler an Atheist? OwenMorgan.com for signed copies. I don't create my own version. I don't, make it up or twist things around to fit a narrative. I simply put down what happened on the page. That's it. I just wanted to understand. If Hitler was an atheist, I wanted to know. If he did his things for atheistic reasons, I wanted to know. But, he wasn't an atheist, and he didn't do his things for atheistic reasons. He did, however, control the church, and they let it happen. They embraced it. Yes, please control us. We love it when you take control of the church and impose your will on it.
I think you're right. I've just been looking at this. Who was the character? Now I should be asking this spontaneously, but it's like, who was the German who was also put in a concentration camp, who Hitler rebuked and said, "You leave."
That is Niemöller. You leave the Reich to me and worry about the church. That scene was not in the movie, surprisingly. That happened in 1935, I believe in March. Again, I wrote about that specific incident at length in great detail. But yeah, it was a crazy moment. God, I can't imagine being in that situation with Niemöller. That would be really, really scary. It was in 1935. Did I not put it in my timeline? Dude, I didn't put this in my timeline. I'm surprised. I mean, it is in the book, and I detail it, a lot. But yeah, here it is, right here. Church and state separation was non-existent until Hitler found it convenient, and only in specific instances. Hitler yelled back, "You leave concern for the Third Reich to me and look after the church." This happened... This is January 25th, 1934, I believe, is when... Yeah, that's when that happened. January 25th, 1934. About 3 months after Bonhoeffer fled to London.
You leave the government to me, and I'll let
Niemöller, Martin Niemöller. Now, Niemöller's in the film. He's in the film.
Is he?
Oh, yeah, he's a character in the film.
Of course, he would have to be. Yes, obviously.
And it's all true. And again,
No, God, the film is not true.
Film can only cover so much, but the actual story of Niemöller, he was a good guy. He was not a...
No, he was a scumbag. Niemöller, he was a bad guy, actually. A Nazi. Voted Nazi in 1924, 28, and 33. Until he finally, after the war, after being released from the concentration camps, after returning to the concentration camp to show his wife and daughter where he spent years of his life, finally, at that point, he said, "Wow, that was really wrong of me to do, wasn't it, to support the Nazi cause? I'm to blame for this," is what he said at that point. And after all of that, after the war was over, denazification was over and all of that, he supported the communists during the Cold War, too. He fought the Americans with everything that he had in the Cold War, and he was even given Soviet awards for bravery and stuff. He just was not a good person. He wasn't. Niemöller famously said something like the white race will be extinct within the next 50 years and we need to fight to preserve the white race or some other crazy thing like that. He was not a good person.
A bad guy. He was a good guy who missed it. And there are a lot of...
No.
pastors like that in America. They're not evil. They don't know that they're serving the devil. They are, but they don't know it. And if they really knew it,
in a concentration camp.
He finally spoke up bravely. They put him in a concentration camp.
He finally spoke up. No, he was just fighting for church control, to get state out of church is what he was trying to do, to get the states to stop being involved. That's why he was taken to a concentration camp eventually. I think his charge was treason or something for his original 7 months stay in jail. He didn't have a charge for his concentration camp stay, to my knowledge. Anyway, he did not speak up bravely in favor of the Jews or in opposition to Hitler. He did not at any point do those things. He was a Nazi.
Know that they're serving the devil. They are, but they don't know it. And if they really knew it,
in a concentration camp.
He finally spoke up bravely. They put him in a concentration camp, so he was there basically for 8 years because they knew he was trouble. If he was not, a prisoner, he's going to cause trouble in Germany for Hitler. There was still the ability to fight back. This is what people forget. And
he spent 7 months in solitary from July 1937 to March 1938. And then went to a concentration camp, spent more time in solitary at Sachsenhausen, and finally got to Dachau, and it wasn't as bad in Dachau because he could go around and speak to people, although his cell was within earshot of the torture cells, so there's that.
That's where we are in America. We by winning this election, by the grace of the Lord Jesus, we have the ability now to begin fighting to get our country back. We have just crossed the starting line. We should have been strangled in the cradle, and have nothing. But God said, "I'm going to give you a chance. We don't deserve."
Wait, is this him admitting that Trump shouldn't have won? That it's unlikely that he would have won? Are we getting a rare moment of clarity and honesty here?
It. And just as Donald Trump was grazed by a bullet, he ought to have died. He should be dead.
Okay, whatever.
The Lord preserved him for God's purposes. America should be dead. America should be over. If we'd lost this election, America would be over. The Lord preserved us for his purposes. Now we get to begin to fight. And to me, the Bonhoeffer story, it's the ultimate story of what happens to the church in the face of evil. Does the church stand, or does just enough people say, we don't want any trouble, we're just going to do church? A lot of that, we got a lot of that in America. And I say to people, if you're going to a church like that, get out of that church.
you guys have to do this. You want to Google, I guess, because you don't know. There's no one. Is there a website?
Actually, I'll tell you. In fact, they gave me a website. If you go to angel.com.
Bleh, no, thank you. Look, it's the movie poster with him holding a gun. This is disgusting right here, honestly. Holy shit, man.
That a film like this will inspire other people. It'll inspire people to say, I want to invest in a film like that. I want to make a film like that. There's a hunger for films like this. And you know, you and I know each other. There have been a lot of films out there, a lot of Christian films, but to do it at a level where, you know, you have Clint Eastwood's screenwriter, Clint Eastwood's editor, the cinematographer is the guy who did Gladiator, a big film for you, for Lance Wallnau fans. This is the best of Hollywood have created a great film about a hero of the faith.
That's true. Yeah, it was some very influential people. The guy that directed Elf, I think, was involved also. Very, very big names produced this. And somehow nobody along the way stopped and said, no, this is like not true at all. Literally nothing here happened. Not one person?
That doesn't happen every day.
And let's
we've got to support it this weekend.
And the business side of this is that it's a business. So if Christian movies like this are successful, then more movies are going to come like this.
And if they're not, then it was rigged, right?
This level, because, you know, you can have the mediocre ones, but this is a quality movie.
Well, this is about changing the culture. This is about changing the temperature of the whole culture, not just, you know, for the church.
So Eric, I agree with you. We got 2 years before midterms, 4 years that the man Trump shuffles off, and whoever inherits that takes it. What has to happen? And this is something we have to really think.
Yeah, anyway, that sounds like the end of the Bonhoeffer part, but this is a joke, a disgusting joke. The Holocaust revisionism happening on the right is wild to me, from people who claim to want to protect and love Jews. Like, how can anybody accept this? It's all lies all the way down. It's disgusting. Tell what you think in the comments.